Hey heroes, Kolz here. Today I'm going to be walking you through the new dungeon rework in Heroes vs. Hordes. It's no longer the weekly event you clear on the toilet. It's now a daily grind, with time-intensive mechanics, but potentially worth it for the extra rewards. So let's see how we can best use your non-toilet time in the new dungeon. In this video, I'll walk you through all the changes that occurred in the new event, with a particular focus on the following 5 key areas: the new mechanics, the best heroes, the optimal pets, weapons, and gear, a strategy for maximizing your score, and potentially the most important part, the difference in rewards between the two versions of the event. Like many other parts of HVH, the biggest rewards come from clearing the content consistently. That means you're going to have to put in the effort each day. So load up your favorite hero, put on your fanciest gear, and let's get ready to destroy the dungeon. Before you run face first into certain doom, it's good to understand what you're getting yourself into. With that in mind, let's look through the new mechanics of the dungeon. While the game provides some modifiers in the description, there are 3 that they don't explicitly mention that it's really important to know about. The first modifier is a reduction to both evasion and to health regeneration. This one really isn't all that important. In Heroes vs. Hordes, you should not be getting hit by the Horde, and if you are, that just means you're bad at the game. The second modifier is movement speed is locked at 9. It's important to note that it says locked and not capped. That means that you automatically get 9 movement speed as soon as you load into the event. Do not stack extra movement speed in order to get to 9. Next up on the list of modifiers is that enemies are immune to instant kill. That means that you don't want to run any kind of instant kill jewels like the assassin jewels, and it also means that you can't do something like the Pirate Queen cheese. A lot of her kit is built around instant kill. With instant kill disabled, Pirate Queen gets a nerf. Lastly, there's no immunity. That's a significant nerf to Blade Master. While all these modifiers were clearly spelled out by the devs, there are 3 important considerations that can vary from game type to game type, and the devs don't usually explain them. The first being cooldown. The standard max cooldown reduction in normal mode is 90%. However, that can vary in other modes like Hero Clash or Nightmare, where it's capped at 40, and they never explicitly say that. Mario VX did God's work, or at least the devs' work, and explains that the cooldown is capped at 90% like in normal mode. The second important consideration is, does key chance get impacted by gear and by heroes? And it does. So if you wear your noble gear, you will increase your key chance at the end of the run. And in the same vein, number 3 is that you can double the rewards at the end of the run. And while these 3 potential modifiers turn out to be the exact same as in normal mode, it's still important to confirm them. So I want to give a special thanks to Pupa, Mario VX, and Haksenen for doing the research. Okay, so now as you have a quick understanding on how the new mechanics work in the dungeon, we can move on to the reason why you're really here, to choose the best heroes and find the optimal gear to clear the dungeon. The path to victory in the dungeon begins with choosing the right hero. Much like the guild event, you have to clear a certain amount of Horde within a given time frame. In this case, it's 2400 Horde within 5 minutes. That makes the best heroes ranged with a ton of DPS. Ranged heroes let you clear out Horde before they even get on the screen, unlike melee heroes, which have to wait for the Horde to get to them before they can hit them. And in what will become a theme, while ranged DPS give you the chance to do the most damage, you're going to have to decide if you're here to top the leaderboards or just to farm it for the keys. If you're looking to top the leaderboards, you're going to want to use one of these heroes. They're not listed in necessarily priority order, but these are all A+ or S tier heroes for using in the dungeon. And there's a bunch, so get ready for a montage. Bunny, Energy Mage, Assassin, Astral Mage, Clockwork Mage, Artificer, and the Oracle. You get the idea. Ranged DPS. If you're going for the farming method, however, then there's one guy I think that stands above the rest, and it's the jolly old rocket launching Santa. But just remember that any ranged hero is going to be better than a melee hero, except for Dark Ranger. You don't ever play Dark Ranger. And now with your best hero chosen, let's go on to gear. You choose your gear like you choose your vegetables. Farm fresh or processed. For those of you that are way too OP to be listening to me talk, you can just consider this new dungeon event a farming event. And to you, I just say, may the key gods be ever in your favor. For everyone else, you want to maximize your DPS. There are no special mechanics in terms of leveling when it comes to the dungeon, so you don't need to cheese +1 starting gear like you would in the arena. Instead, just go with max DPS. A typical build for me looks something like a rogue helm with a rogue chest, ranger boots, rogue gloves, rogue necklace, and rogue ring. You could potentially substitute out the rogue ring, since it's based around instant kill, for something like the wizard ring. And in fact, I've had many people tell me that the wizard ring is better. But to them I would just say, I bet you think the world is a sphere. Now on to the best weapons. Your priority weapons follow the same pattern as heroes. You want ranged weapons that can reach the edge of the maps. So here's my standard weapon build for the dungeon. Bombs number 1, fire orbs number 2. Next I run chain landing, followed by either crossbows or ice wand. If you're having trouble surviving, a point or two in ice wand early in the run can make all the difference. If you're lucky enough to have acquired special weapons like Lantern or Boar or maybe one of the daggers, you can consider substituting those for things at the end of the build like crossbows and Ice Wand. And if you are one of those high-level farmers, you should consider throwing in an XP tome to maximize your gold during the run. But don't lose a torch over the search for extra gold. When it comes to jewels, you'll have to make the same decision whether or not you can farm or you need the extra damage to progress. Like more or less every other event in the game, your max DPS jewel build will be based around ultimate charge and ultimate duration, vulnerability, and then hitting the cooldown cap. In this case again, you're going for 60% in the detail screen, because you'll get 30% from the cooldown tome in the middle of the run. Once you hit the 60% CD cap in the detail screen, you're looking at adding extra projectile jewels or AoE jewels. But if you're there, I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. And then for you max farmers out there, it's just key jewels all the way down in my opinion. Alright. Now on to pets. I get asked all the time about what is the best pet setup. And the best pet setup generally is just having your highest level pet be your main pet, and then your two next highest level pets being your passive pets. Early in the game, you're probably going to have something like Pyrocrankin as your main pet, and then Emberpaw and maybe a Striker as your passive pets. As you start to get epic pets, they'll become your main pet, and Pyrocrankin and Emberpaw will be your passive pets. If you don't even have Pyrocrankin, you're looking for essentially a ranged pet. The same thing that applies for ranged weapons and for ranged heroes applies to pets. The more range they have, the sooner that they can hit the horde, the more horde they can clear. And that's all the prep we can do to get ready for the run. So now it's time to go on and figure out the strategy for maximizing your score to top the leaderboards. Like I mentioned earlier, you need to clear a 2400 horde within the 5-minute time period. You get a higher score for the more horde that you're able to clear beyond that mark. And while the top whales are going to be the ones at the very top of the ladder, you can still try to improve a bit. I've seen people that wear all heroic gear and they are crazy. Those powder blue pieces of gear are a goal worth grinding for. But for regular players like you and me, there is a strategic way to optimize clearing horde. You know what that is? Standing absolutely still. You can't make for much more exciting gameplay than that. So your goal is to move as little as possible during the event. You will obviously need to move around early in order to collect experience orbs. Not collecting those can let the horde get to you and ruin the whole run. Besides those movements to get experience orbs, you want to stand still basically as much as you can if you're trying to top the leaderboards. Like in adventure mode, you're going to get a magnet and a heal 2 times during the run. You'll get it at the 3-minute mark and then around the 50-second mark. If you can use those 2 magnets to maximize your amount of not moving. As long as you can consistently clear horde between the 3-minute mark and that 50-second mark, there's no reason to move. And I'm sure a video game doesn't get any more exciting than that. And that, heroes, is how you maximize your score in the dungeon. The real question is, why are you running this thing in general? And that, of course, is for the rewards. So let's go over how they compare to the previous iteration of the dungeon. So the big thing for me is understanding how many keys did I get in the old version and how many keys do I get in the new version. And the answer is, you get a lot more keys now, but you have to spend a ton more time to get them. Haxanon, who's much smarter than me, did all of the math in Discord to figure out exactly how many more keys you'll get. The math works out that if you do the base number of 7 runs, given the additional key chance at the end of the run, you should net out to having slightly more keys, assuming the RNG gods are in your favor. However, you get additional torches for both hitting VIP level 4 and for buying the monthly hero pass. That means at most, you can run 3 of these dungeon events per day. If you have access to the additional runs, and you have the additional time, and again, if you have the additional time, you will net out to significantly more keys at the end of the week. The difference is, you're going to need to run 14 to 21 times. So if you compare the old system, where it was 1 run for about 7 minutes, and this one, where it's 14 runs for 7 minutes, you're looking at about 7 minutes of time versus an hour and a half of your time over the course of the week. And if you're running all 21, you can tack on an extra hour. So if you have the time, the damage, and the ability to not get bored standing still, you can net out to significantly more rewards, then this is a nice perk for the Hero Pass and for VIP level 4. If you don't have the time, at least remember to hit the Quick Raid button on the Dungeon Event screen. This button gives you the reward from the end of the previous stage you've defeated without the ability to get keys or to double it. So just use Quick Raid if you don't have time to run the dungeon that day. And that's the new dungeon. In my opinion, I think all in, if you have VIP level 4 or the Hero Pass, this is definitely a buff. If you can put in the time, and you have the time, you'll get significantly more keys throughout the course of the week. Just don't neglect your family and friends. And that's it. That's my guide to the dungeon. Thanks for listening. I'm Kolz, a high-level HVH player. Please subscribe and like the content if you like it. I have several other guides on arena and talents that will help you through the early game. And remember, always do your adventures!